I still remember the exact second my son looked away while two security guards wrapped their hands around my wrists. Across the ballroom, his beautiful fiancée lifted a crystal champagne glass, smiled at me, and whispered, "You have officially lost everything." She thought the $5 million fortune was already hers. She had no idea that less than 24 hours later, every bank account she planned to spend would be frozen, every legal document she trusted would become worthless, and the celebration she called her greatest victory would become the beginning of her complete destruction. Before we begin, dear friends, please help me. Your subscription is very valuable to me. Please subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. My name is Margaret Lawson. I am 70 years old. People often mistake silence for weakness. That misunderstanding has ruined many lives. Mine was never one of them. For 46 years, my husband Richard and I built our business from nothing. We started with one lakeside motel that smelled of fresh pine wood and old coffee. The roof leaked every spring. The carpets were faded. Every dollar mattered. Richard repaired broken pipes himself while I handled reservations, payroll, bookkeeping, and customer complaints. Together we slowly transformed that tiny motel into Lawson Grand Resort, one of the most respected luxury destinations in the state. Success changed many things around us. It never changed us. Richard still wore the same inexpensive leather watch he had purchased when we married. I still drove my dark blue Lexus that was nearly 10 years old because it worked perfectly. We believed money should create security, not arrogance. Our only child, Owen, grew up surrounded by comfort instead of struggle. That difference mattered more than I realized. He never saw the sleepless nights. He never counted quarters for groceries. He never watched creditors pound on our office door. Instead, he attended private schools, graduated from a prestigious university, and entered the family business with polished shoes and ambitious dreams. For several years, everything seemed promising. He was intelligent, confident, charming with investors, excellent at presentations. Employees respected him. Guests liked him. Richard believed Owen would eventually become an outstanding leader. Then cancer arrived without mercy. Within 11 months, my husband was gone. Before his final surgery, Richard called our attorney, Daniel Brooks, into his hospital room. He insisted on revising every legal protection surrounding our estate. He said something I will never forget. "If Owen ever falls under someone else's control, promise me Margaret will always have the final decision." Daniel promised. Richard smiled. Then he signed what became known as the Safeguard Clause. That single document quietly changed everything. Operational authority over the resort, every corporate banking authorization, every ownership transfer above $500,000, and the $5 million trust required my written approval while I remained mentally competent. Owen inherited wealth. I retained control. Richard called it protection. At the time, I thought he was worrying too much. I would eventually discover he had underestimated the danger that I met Victoria 8 months after Richard's funeral. She entered my office wearing a white designer suit, carrying a crocodile leather handbag that cost nearly $8,000. Her perfume was Baccarat Rouge 540. It filled the room before she spoke. She smiled warmly at me and called me Mom. The words sounded practiced, not heartfelt. Owen watched her with complete admiration. Every sentence she spoke became truth inside his mind. She praised the resort. Praised my leadership. Praised our family's legacy. Yet her eyes never rested on people. They measured paintings, antiques, artwork, crystal chandeliers, and every expensive object. During dinner she casually asked about company ownership. The question seemed harmless. It was not. Within weeks she encouraged Owen to modernize everything. Fire older employees. Sell unused land. Borrow against valuable assets. Expand faster. Spend more. Whenever I questioned the risks, she laughed softly. Traditional thinking creates average results, she said. Richard used to say patience creates permanent success. Victoria believed speed created power. Daniel quietly investigated her background after I requested a routine review. The report arrived 3 weeks later. Victoria had dissolved 2 previous companies after aggressive debt accumulation. She had dated wealthy entrepreneurs before suddenly leaving each relationship immediately after financial disputes. Nothing proved criminal conduct, but the pattern bothered me. I never confronted Owen with the report because evidence without timing becomes wasted ammunition. Instead, I stored every document inside our attorney's encrypted client folder and continued watching. The engagement announcement came sooner than expected. Victoria insisted on hosting the celebration inside Lawson Grand Resort. She wanted newspaper photographers, local television cameras, influential business leaders, and every social media influencer she could invite. She even requested imported white orchids from Singapore and custom gold menus printed on Italian cotton paper. The estimated bill exceeded $180,000. Owen approved every expense. I quietly approved the reservation because refusing would only make me appear jealous. The ballroom glittered beneath enormous crystal lights. A string quartet played familiar love songs. Waiters served Wagyu beef, chilled lobster, and vintage champagne costing almost $600 per bottle. Guests congratulated me for gaining such an elegant future daughter-in-law. I smiled politely. Inside, I kept listening. Victoria could never resist talking when wealthy people surrounded her. Near the end of dinner, I overheard her speaking with 2 friends beside the marble staircase. She laughed. Once Owen signs everything after the wedding, his mother won't control a penny. One friend asked, "Are you sure?" Victoria raised her champagne glass. "He'll sign whatever I place in front of him." For the first time since Richard died, I felt absolute certainty instead of grief. My husband had predicted this moment years before. Now I understood why. I looked across the crowded ballroom and caught Daniel Brooks watching me. He gave one almost invisible nod. Without speaking, we both knew the game had finally begun. They believed I was defeated. I knew they had already walked into Richard's carefully prepared trap. The following morning, Victoria arrived at my table carrying a thick folder. Owen smiled proudly. "Mom, these are routine restructuring papers. Just sign them so everything is simpler after the wedding." I accepted the folder without argument. Inside were transfer authorizations, corporate resolutions, banking amendments, and ownership assignments directing nearly every valuable asset toward a shell company called Vantage Horizon Holdings. Daniel's investigation had already identified it as Victoria's controlled entity. I closed the folder gently. "I'll have my attorney review everything." Victoria's smile disappeared for 1 second. Then she recovered. That evening she decided humiliation would force compliance. More than 200 guests filled the ballroom when she grabbed my hand and shouted, "Outdated people like you don't belong in my VIP class." Owen looked away. Security escorted me outside. Nobody noticed Daniel quietly leaving through another exit. Within 1 hour, he filed emergency enforcement of Richard's safeguard clause. Before sunrise, court orders froze corporate accounts, suspended unauthorized transfers, revoked Owen's banking credentials, and prohibited any disposal of protected assets. At breakfast the next morning, Victoria opened her banking application. Every balance displayed 0 available access. Owen's company cards failed. The resort doors required my authorization. Their lawyer received certified notices explaining every attempted transfer violated the trust agreement and fiduciary obligations. The engagement ring struck the dining room floor as Victoria screamed that someone had sabotaged her future. Nobody answered. Owen stared at the legal papers with trembling hands. Every signature he had placed beneath her instructions had triggered protective provisions instead of ownership rights. Richard had anticipated manipulation years earlier. Victoria packed designer handbags, expensive shoes, jewelry boxes, and cashmere coats before racing toward the garage. The security system denied access because company property inventories had already been locked. Even the luxury SUV she regularly drove belonged to the resort. She threw the diamond ring at Owen, called him useless, and walked away carrying only one small suitcase. 3 days later Owen appeared at my front door. His eyes were swollen from sleepless nights. Pride had vanished. So had every illusion. He fell to his knees and apologized without excuses. I listened quietly. Forgiveness and restored authority are never identical things. I forgave my son because bitterness poisons honest hearts. I refused to return control because trust, once shattered, must be earned through years, not tears. Today the resort continues welcoming families from across the country. Owen works there again, beginning at the lowest management level. He earns every promotion honestly. Victoria disappeared from our lives, chased by creditors instead of luxury dreams. Richard's wisdom protected everything we built together. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Let me know in the comments what you would have done. Peace finally returned to my home. Every sunrise reminded me that quiet patience defeats loud greed. Justice needed no revengeful shouting, only careful preparation, lawful action, unwavering dignity, and time while hope quietly endured forever.